Well, hello, folks. This is Mike Hanson, your old Facebook buddy and your YouTube buddy. We got a new Facebook page, Hanson Archives, Hanson Archives. And our older one that has a lot of, be sure to subscribe down there is what we need. We got about 20,000 on Mike Hanson Archives, but we started a new one, Hanson Archives, for all the good old classics. Alex Jones, Jeff Davis, Steve Lane, George Humphrey, Chris Ritter, Jimmy Ritter, all the good old people that you used to see on ACTV. The tapes are 20 to 25 years old, and I'm trying to preserve them. We have hired somebody to and bought all the equipment to transfer them over, get them edited down to some kind of sense, because they were live shows and raw footage of different things that we've been involved in. So be sure to subscribe down there to Hanson Archives. We got a new one coming up, Waco Archives. It's going to be all the Waco stuff that we've done. So if you would like to help out, I'm offering a special. Send $25 to 901 St. Joseph. She's going to put the address up here. Gonzales, Texas, 78629, and we'll send you a signed copy of my book, Bohemian Grove, Cult of Conspiracy. If you'd like to use a credit card, be sure to call us at 830-672-3089. Just leave a message or talk to a live person there when they're open, and we'll get you one sent out ASAP. Alrighty, thanks a lot and God bless, and be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you. God bless.
I love Mike Hanson Archives.
Get ready to run.
Hello, Austin, Texas, and we are back. Now, this is the Jeff Davis Real News Hour. This is our 4th edition down here. Got Alex Jones with us. We're going to be talking about the illusion of freedom. Now, let me just say a couple of things about this. We've been doing some studying and some reading as far as just exactly. Let me just read this first. This was mentioned that we would read this, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's called I Didn't Speak Up. In Germany, Nazis first came for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I am a Protestant. Then they came for me, and by the time there was no one left, they came for me, and by that time there was no one left to speak for me. So I think this is, when we start talking about why all of our rights need to be kept here, and all of our ideas and liberties, that's a perfect example. Now, the focus of today's show is going to be the illusion of freedom. Now, we've got a little book here. If we could get a close-up of this to get this going here. It's called The Illusion of Freedom, folks, and I think you'll find it quite interesting that when we focus in here and get where you can see it, as far as just exactly what we're talking about here. Because the fact is, you will see that much of what we're being told about as being free, this has already been practiced, folks, in other governments gone past. And it's called the illusion of freedom. This is going to be the thrust of this news hour. Basically, the first picture shows in Nazi Germany, they requested to have your papers in order. And then in the communist Soviet Union, they did the same thing. Now here in America, they also they say when you get pulled over, you'll be free to go as soon as we see your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, etc. Same thing, and then these other tyrannical regimes.
The police aren't supposed to come for you until after you have committed a crime, not all these spot checks and things. And that's where we've gotten confused in this country. We're all being treated like criminals rather than punishing people after they commit criminal acts.
Right. Now this is going to lead into the focus of what we're going to talk about here tonight. Now we're going to be using several examples, and I think we're going to be using our own ideas too. But in this book here, it's called The Right to Travel, and we won't get a close-up of it, but it's called The Right to Travel, Liberty or License. and it talks about different things as far as how the license has been used to licensing, permits, fees, and all of this type of thing.
Yeah, the Constitution counts except when there's a federal license. Or
Right.
local license.
Took our liberty away and gave us the license.
Basically, yeah. Basically, the idea is that they've taken our liberty away and given us a license. Now, I want to bring into the program the Jeff Davis Real News Hour today, Alex Jones. Alex,
Yes.
pleasure to see you here.
Hey, thanks, Joe.
And tell us a little bit, Alex, of some of your ideas. Now, I mean, anybody that knows that graphic that we put up there, there's a lot of truth to that.
Well, it's absolutely true, and I hope that we'll show that graphic
We will.
quite a few times through the show. I mean, this is how tyranny creeps on us. And we did a live show tonight before we taped this show, and a lady called in, and she's like, I'm against socialism. And then about a minute later, she goes, I'm for socialized health care.
Uh-huh.
And then she said, well, that's not socialism. She says, I'm for socialized insurance,
No, she actually said.
driver's insurance.
No, she actually said that she was for a state-run liability insurance deal. And then she turned right around and said how corrupt the police departments were.
Yeah.
So it's like they're corrupt, but she
Well-
wants to then go ahead and set up
the problem with insurance is that you have to have it. See, that is artificial right there.
Yeah, that's artificial right there.
So that's where the corruption's at. Not
Yeah.
that we need government now to step in with even more corruption.
Right, that's right.
You don't go to
right.
thugs to solve your problems.
That's right. So, but what we're where we're going to take this, folks, is on these lines. Now, we've had a fellow on there named Mr. Roland Ellingson, and Mr. Ellingson, who's been on Alex's show and ours, our live shows, has become in the last 6 months a target of the local corruption. And basically, I'll let Alex explain it, but basically, he was threatened with $200 or $2,000 a day fines on his property
For objectionable material. I mean, what is that? And then we went out to the health department and found that they had a couple foot tall grass, garbage, junk, walls falling down.
And this story's actually
Yes.
got quite a bit of attention.
Yes, and it was all over talk radio for months. And then the statesman 3 days later countered with a front page article with the same numbers to call for service that we had said to call and complain. And we talked about
Go
that.
ahead, keep talking. I'm going to look at something.
And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, as if that wasn't corrupt enough and out of control enough, they wrote even more stories. So what do? I went out with Jeff's producer, out to city council member's home. I went out to, well, should we mention her name? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't really matter one way or another.
Well, we went out to Jackie Goodwin's home in a very nice neighborhood. It wasn't a rundown neighborhood or something. About the same as Roland Ellingson's home. And there were, I'm not kidding, vines growing over derelict vehicles, tarps on roofs, mosquitoes swarming in the air, and all the other homes were nice and manicured and well ordered. She owned 2 homes on the street. Lived in one, rented out the other to some friends. Then we got some heat from people. Why were we being mean to Jackie Goodman? Well, we don't have the power to give her $2,000 a day fines for having weeds and vines growing on derelict vehicles in English ivy everywhere and tarps on roofs, and we wouldn't want to do that to her. The property value goes down, people move out, it becomes a bad neighborhood, people move to good neighborhoods. That's called the free market. But think about this, and think about this very, very carefully. We were being accused and attacked by some people in the establishment around here for attacking Jackie Goodman and being mean and mean-spirited. When a man that fought for his country, a vet, a senior citizen who's lived there since '47, was being given $2,000 a day fines, I crap you not, for a dead yard. It had grass this tall, grass this high, nothing in the yard. He didn't clean it up. And it's just out of control. That's where we're at. Total hypocrisy. So some people weren't concerned with the hypocrisy. They were concerned with his yard. They were, it just shows how dumbed down and misdirected the mindset is of some of the general public out there. And I would hope that people, would start waking up to this.
Let me now I'm going to do just a little bit of reading here, folks, because I think this is the heart of what we're talking about. Black Law's Dictionary talks about licenses in the law of contracts, a permission accorded by a competent authority conferring the right to do some act which without such authorization would be illegal, or it would be a trespass or a tort. Now, there's several concepts to a license. There must be a licensor and issuer, which meaning the state in this case.
Well, but they care about us. It's best interest.
There must be a licensee, which means the slaves in this case. The license gives a grant or right, permission, or liberty to the licensee. Now, what's interesting about all of this, it goes on here, but I just want to summarize briefly what this is about. Basically, it says here, the last couple of things here, the licensor has the power to prohibit. And we're seeing this now. This is a perfect example of what, how the enemy operates. They control these resources at the top. And now they're saying, by the control of the resources and through these programs, through this National Transportation Safety Administration Board, that if people don't submit to certain, now this hasn't happened yet, but it's something that Alex and I both talked about in this Federal Register. If people don't submit to blood and urine samples, then the federal government is going to restrict those. They could restrict those people of their driver's license, their professional license, and say this is the power of this licensing process.
Of abusing the licensing system.
Right. Well, the whole thing, and
it's an abuse of power, Jeff. But I want to make a comment on this.
Well, let me just make this final comment here, because this is okay. Licensing. Now, basically, what the licensing. I'm just going to mention here that licensing is part of the Communist Manifesto. We talked about this on an earlier edition of this program. Abolition of private property and the right of property is the one. Okay, so we've talked about this. Now, so this whole thing about licensing, permits, fees, tickets, it's basically comes out of, it's an old Babylonian type system of enslavement. And most people don't acknowledge it and
that way you can turn the slaves loose, but you can always guarantee that they're going to pay you the tribute for the right to do whatever they're doing.
Right. Now I'm going to ask Alex here in just a minute after. Now the answer to this, from my perspective, is that
there's one of the loving. There's a $2,000 a day fine that Mr. Roland Ellingson.
The threat of the fine.
Well, what we can do is if they can zoom in on that, you can mess with the knobs over there and kind of bring the black out.
Now, now here's the answer, folks. We do a lot of complaining about, these different mechanisms that the slave system set up on us. Now, just briefly, the answer to instead of all of this, the state approving all of these licenses.
We have a basic rule of law, and if people break that law, then they're punished.
And what's the rule of law?
We need to punish criminals.
The basic rule.
We're not all criminals. It's people that break the law.
Basically, folks, here's the answer to avoid all of this enslaving licensing and gathering information on us. That simple answer, that simple solution is very simple to many of the other problems we discuss here. And that is basically, like Alex said, you have a natural order of living. In other words, you can basically go out and do anything you want with your life, your property, your honest acquired property, and do anything you would like to do, choose to do, provided you don't impose that right upon somebody else. If you do that, then you have violated that natural order of law, and you should be punished.
Let's go back to the hypocrisy since your producer has got it up on screen.
Well, I want to first have you comment on this.
Well, you notice she wasn't getting a $2,000 a day fine.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
But Mr. Roland Ellingson was. And then we'll show you her other home right across the street. There's the tarp with mosquitoes swarming. We'll try to show you that. Literally the most now that isn't really bad. That's just the tarp and some. Actually, I like the way that house looks, except for the tarp. I like overgrown houses. There's Miss Goodman's other home, and we'll show you a derelict vehicle parked. Now that's what most of the houses look like in the neighborhood. But then right next door, you've got Jackie Goodman's home. That's where she actually lives, and take a look at that. Now that is absolute hypocrisy. And we didn't do this at first until we'd show the health department totally being in hypocrisy. Then the statesman countered, saying that it was extreme and that it was, and the $2,000 a day fines were loving and needed for the children. Literally said for the kids in East Austin, which Ellingson doesn't live in East Austin, lives in Central Austin, and did all of this. And later we'll show you the health department if we can do that. and then Roland Ellingston's home. It's hypocrisy. But
what the key to understanding is this, folks, is you can't allow an entity. Keep in mind, we are the government. We're supposed to be the government. That's what it was founded as. And now we have allowing these people, somebody else, to decide what's best for us. And this is now.
Well, these guys are vultures.
Well,
Jeff.
let me just answer.
These
now,
guys are vultures.
But keep in mind, a lot of the people within their mechanism are vulnerable to the whole house of cards. Now, I want you to answer, Alex, in your term. Basically, what is real liberty?
Now, there's Roland Ellingston's home. Oh,
what is real liberty, and what is instead of all this regulation?
It's the guy that was getting the
$2,000 that we're being told on, that we're being exposed to. What is your how do you feel that the natural order of things should be for real liberty? I mean,
for real liberty, I think I agree with the city. Mr. Roland Ellingston's home that we just saw, we might rewind that. He needs $2,000 a day fines. I'm concerned with his home having 3-inch grass, even though there's no homeowners deal in that neighborhood.
Well, that's just a hypocrisy.
No, I think they should take his home.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about the throat slitters and the rapists and the white-collar criminals and the federal government and the Chinese buying off our president. I'm not concerned. I'm concerned with that guy's home. And he's hurting the children. And
but what's the
I'll quit being sarcastic.
Yeah, I want to know what the answer. I mean, I've already basically it's going to be the same as mine.
Repeat your question.
It's going to be the same as mine.
What's the answer?
We don't need a bunch of dictatorial bureaucracies and regulatory agents.
Well, number one, you stand up against corruption. You stand up against it, and people will argue that, well, who are you to know best? I don't know best. Nobody knows best, but I know one thing: things are getting out of hand. The government's growing too fast. They got too much control over every mechanism of our lives and our children. They're coming after our kids. The media's we've done many shows on how they're obsessed with the kids. Over at your place last week, we watched headline news, and in 20 minutes, 80% of the stories were about the kids, the mercury in the kids.
That's just part of the condition.
Well, hold on, Clinton and child. Child daycare and federal standards, but they're not federal, but it's federal standards. You know, it's up is down, down is up, black is white, white is black. It's doublespeak. And the next story was kids and tobacco and how the federal government's going to save kids from tobacco, but they're going to still bring in the coke and the heroin. And it just goes on and on. And so we got to start realizing that they're programming us, that the stuff that they tell us, but hold on, Jeff, something you said, and I want to ask you this, something you said, and I say it all the time, but I've forgotten about it. It's a really great point. We come in here with executive orders, 12,986, sign over our parks, United Nations, 12,986. I know you won't check it out. And I shouldn't be like that. Most people won't. But listen, they'll just believe whatever's in the newspaper, which we tore up one on our live show earlier. They will just accept the pap and the murder and the men against the women and the blacks against the whites and the whites against the blacks and all this balkanization and division, divided house will fall, and then the globalists run everything with their criminal syndicates. But they will trust whatever comes out of that TV, or at least accept it more. They will read the newspaper and think it's all helping them.
And it's so that it's all valid.
Yes, and they will never question or check it out or do anything. But we come out with executive orders and they call up and say, oh, you're being extreme.
Or it's even worse than that. It's actually, a lot of this stuff now that I'm hearing is this, we need documentation. Well, the media doesn't.
Last week, we were throwing up MK Ultra, 1978
sure. I've got all the documentation you need, folks. For example, right here. Can we get a close-up of this?
Strategic Studies Institute.
The U.S. Army War College. Now, this is something we've been talking about on this show for a long time.
Microimplants. Well, something before we go to this, I want to qualify the question you asked me that I never answered.
Yes, I need you to, what's the answer to all of this licensing and regulatory?
If people see that this licensing is absolutely, show them the cover.
Yeah,
if they see that this licensing, before you show them the chip implantation plans, if you don't think licensing's out of control, Clinton gave an executive order to the Transportation Department that by 93 in all states they would be thumb scanning. Now some states haven't adopted it because of people fighting it. We adopted it here in Texas, thumb scanning down at the DPS office.
Okay, that's good.
Now Clinton by 98, this is what he said. I don't know if they're going to implement. It's in the Federal Registry.
Yeah,
we showed it to you 10 times. Urine and blood testing to get a driver's license, and tells them how to put in clinics down at the DPS office.
Now I want to just mention to you folks that this used to be, as of 2 months ago, was a classified document. This is one of the whitewashes that they've declassified. Probably it's all white. I'm sure it's all whitewash. However, this is something we've been talking about a number of times on this program. And I want you all to see this.
Yeah, let's get a shot.
Because I mean, you want documentation. Here's documentation that the U.S. Army War College has been throwing around the idea that right here, it says right here. Well, I have to read it to see the.
Eventually, such implants
back it up a little bit.
Could be permanently implanted under the skin. That's exactly what it says.
Okay, no, that's good. I want people to zoom in a little bit or focus a little bit. Right here is see, it's talking about the central data bank of individuals locators. It's an IPLD, individual position locator device, and it could be permanently implanted under the skin. Do you see that, folks? Now this is documentation. Now they're throwing this idea around in the U.S. Army War College.
Show them the cover
this
again.
This is what they could be using. Now this is
it right here, buddy.
This is not. This is direct from the place itself, man. I mean,
let's get another close shot of that. Flip on, and I'll put it on there, guys.
Now that's documentation.
Go ahead and switch cameras.
Let
me just
mention the. Now, how does this all tie into an illusion of liberty? We need to put that. Can we put that
yeah, we have to
picture back up there again? We do.
Saying.
Okay, I want to do this. I want to show this.
Because this illustrates it perfectly.
Yes, it does. It's kind of a comical type way of doing it. Oh yes, there's some more of that undocumented evidence. Okay, can we get a close up of this? One way. Is there any way you can steal it and just keep it up there? Get it up there, focus it real well.
Yeah, guys, we don't have teleprompters, and we're in a very primitive studio. We're not like Peter Jennings, who has no reason to lie to you. So tune into him and trust what he has to say.
He's on right now, so don't tune in.
Oh, I'm being sarcastic, Mike. I think they know sarcasm.
Yeah, we're competing against those CFR. Those news reporters.
Loving best interest. They have no reason to lie to us.
Those CFR elites. I mean,
those
national newscasters.
No, what does my radio show say?
Here it is.
The one-liners. Exposing the minions of the Legion of Doom that have infested our government.
You'll get more information here in 10 minutes. You will there.
Hey,
right.
Let's back it up. They can't see that.
You'll get more information here.
I want them to see
in
this.
10 minutes.
This little graphic right here.
Then you'll get on the news media in 6 months. Real information. You'll get plenty of pap and manipulation. Yeah, let's freeze that there.
Okay, get it real good, and then.
No, you got to straighten it up, Jeff.
Okay.
Straighten it up.
That's the best I can do.
That's perfect. He's got it. Yeah, that's loving.
Okay, talk over.
And now, if people can't see the pure honesty of this, you got a Nazi in Germany saying you're free as soon as I see your papers, but up until that point, you're not free. You got them in Russia. You're free up until the point, if you're all in order and I want to let you be free. And then now here in America, and it seems real. Americans wouldn't have accepted this 50 years ago. Now we're accepting thumb scanning, and now Clinton wants urine and blood testing. That's the point, guys.
I mean, this little cartoon
doesn't stop.
here, I think it's just perfect as far as showing the current state of affairs.
Well, I mean, now they can just say that you're in a so-called federal flood zone if they want to lay that.
Oh yeah, let me mention that real quick. While you're tasting a little bit of that comic strip there, here is an interesting letter from Nations Bank. I'm not. That comes to us. Now it says it's not Nations Bank that's doing this. Basically, what it says here, though, it's talking about. It's talking about basically it says here because your property lies in a federally designated special flood zone area.
I will.
Flood hazard area. We are required to ensure that you maintain adequate flood insurance on your property. This is all very interesting here.
Or they won't let you bank with them. Isn't that
See, now this is another example of the licensing. Now,
you got private banks with
Bank.
the Federal Reserve, the private banks, and the IRS. When you sign that, when you sign your bank deal to get a bank account, you sign on to all the federal regulations.
Actually, though, the bank is basically just following what's dictated to them. In this case, however,
yeah, they're part of the government now.
Yeah, here's an example of control. This is an example of control. This whole national floodplain thing.
It's FEMA.
Who is this government?
They're the people building the concentration camps.
To set up these. Let me ask you, and let me tell you exactly the way it should be on this. There's nothing wrong with the government that says, okay, Alex Jones's house is in a floodplain. Just as a warning.
But if you want to build there, go ahead.
Right. But what is wrong now is when they start dictating and set up another scam, meaning the flood insurance, forcing taxpayers to participate into this insurance.
Well, look at the
program.
government right here, and we have the numbers blocked out so you don't call these.
Okay, basically it says seize sports cars.
This is stolen goods, and it tells you radios, VCRs, everything from IRS and other things. So basically, they are advertising their stolen goods. Well, Mike, you don't even have to do that because we're not showing the number. They are advertising their stolen goods right here. And remember, the IRS, there's no due process. There's no innocent until proven guilty. They just come and seize everything in your house, my friends. The Constitution has been used for toilet paper by these bureaucrats and their controllers. And that's just disgusting. Show them the home. Government foreclosed home.
Well, no, that's got the number up there. We got to be real careful of that. But anyway, let me
What are you
just.
talking about, Jeff? The number's blocked out.
Not very well, because I could.
Well, I'll just put my thumb there.
Let me. Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Go put your finger over.
Let's
Okay.
go ahead and zoom in on that.
Here's the home. Now, basically, the principle to this is.
Yeah, that's a better marker.
Yeah, let me have it, man.
Okay.
The principle to this is, folks, is that this government is stealing from people in these seizures, and then turning around and auction them back off. Now, first, now just think of the mentality of something like that. But secondly, who profits from the system like that? The banks.
Yeah.
Because the person who has earned equity in that that piece of property has paid so many years of equity into it, and then it's taken away from him. And then the bank
Starts the
gets
cycle over.
Yeah, gets the cycle
Starts
back
the
over
cycle
again.
over.
It ends up back in the bank's hands, and then
see,
they again
Jeff,
sell it.
something people don't understand is that they think along the lines of day to day, week to week. These players that we're fighting against think on a long-term scale. They
Sure.
think very long-term, and so they don't care if it takes a generation to get that house. They don't care. That's why. I mean, think about how many times you're taxed. You're taxed.
Let's get now we
You're
get
taxed
across
on
the
your
thing.
income. You're taxed
Now
on
we can
sales tax.
do both of them.
You're taxed on property taxes. You're taxed on investments with capital gains tax, and you're taxed with inheritance tax when you die. So, and there's even more taxes. There's taxes passed down in the prices of the products you buy. There is taxes in that the World Trade Organization rules that China can have a 15% tariff on us, and we can only have a 2% on them. I mean, you know, it's, yeah, show that home.
Right there it is, folks. There's the home.
Yeah, people's homes being stolen, families being destroyed. I have friends personally who the IRS doesn't even have any proof. They just take your
Government
home.
foreclosed homes.
Not
There it
loving.
is. Now they're stealing from somebody, and then, like you say, recycling the back into the market. The banks have acquired up all of the equity that was paid into the house, and then now they're going out and going to start the cycle again. And just think of all the abuse. And now, when you go to these things, if you're real dumb and naive,
You're joining in
you
on it.
really think that you're doing that you've found a loophole in the economy and you're taking advantage of such a wonderful opportunity. Isn't that loving of them to set up a system?
And then you're involved in the violation of others.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Now, this is just a small token of some of the theft going on here, but I want to just stay. Okay, did you answer the question about the what's real liberty? What does it mean?
It means personal responsibility, and then the government and the media's, the modern bureaus of propaganda, the mainstream media, will then counter to us.
Yeah, but don't we need all these hoarded licenses and regulations beaten
Jeff,
down
you want me
from
to
the
answer
feds?
You want me to answer the question?
Yeah, do we need all that?
Well, let me preface it, and I kind of lost my thought, but
We need that, though, because the people are so irresponsible, Alex, that they can't think for themselves.
yeah. Anyways, well, yeah, and I understand you're joking. Yeah, there's Nelda Spears. We're gonna take good care of you, but really, what it comes down, I lost my thought, but
That's all right.
yeah, but
Points are still being made.
yeah, really, what it comes down to is that real liberty is taking responsibility, and the media and the bureaus of propaganda will tell you it's your responsibility to submit for the children's sake. And I'm not just saying that. It's always for the children. And
80%.
you have to ask yourself, the more that we rely on this government, the more trouble expands, the more corruption expands. You know, take the Capital Metro thing. We all demanded a referendum, and the state legislature said, no, you can't have it. But what we will do for you is we'll have another layer of bureaucracy, increase Cap Metro's funding by a couple $100 million, And that'll really show them. We'll increase their funding, add a new layer of state bureaucracy. That way we get some of the payoffs from the owners of the of Cap Metro. That way we get into the mafia type deal.
Yeah.
So the big enforcers muscle in. And now the FBI comes down with the Justice Department and has investigations of Cap Metro. And the more they do it, the more they'll. And it said the feds are investigating because they were fixing to bring down all this money for light rail. And aren't we lucky that they're going to bring in all this money for light rail? And so now they're here on the scene. So first locally, then state, and now we really cried out. So the feds, the good stewards, are here to keep us safe.
Speaking of keeping back on this subject,
There's the sheriff of Nottingham up on the screen.
do you realize, Alex, just how many things you have to do if you go out and you buy a car, all the things you have to tithe to the state before you get out on the road?
If you drive a faulty vehicle, hold on.
First you have
hold
sales
on.
tax.
If you drive a faulty vehicle and kill somebody or hurt somebody, you should be thrown in the hole for 10 years.
Yeah, you should be punished.
And then people will
Right.
drive a nice car.
Right, but what you have now, that's the old liberty. That's the real mechanism. You're free to.
And
do,
then that
but
puts
let me-
hold on. Then that puts the incentive for people to train their kids, for people to be
Right.
their own
In
stewards.
other words, be responsible for yourselves instead of having big bureaucrats.
And then we don't need the
dictating
government
that.
with big buildings off in Washington controlled by foreign banks that own our country.
And what else?
They're dismantling your freedom.
What else is funny about this system that's in
Again, we're
place?
just theorists.
Let me just mention one other thing too.
The revolution in military affairs. and
Let me mention this. It's one other
conflict
thing
short of war.
that's real interesting.
This is control of population. Conflicts short of war. The revolution in military affairs and conflict short of war. And this is U.S. War Army College talking about transmitters for the general public.
Let me mention this. I want to mention this. Now, what's really interesting in all of this licensing and fees and all of this permits and stuff is that if somebody goes out and first off, most of the licenses there's a victimless crime in these fines and things. In other words, no victim has been violated except the state, and with the fine, the penalty goes to the state. Now let me make this point because this is interesting. Even if there is somebody that gets violated now under this current system that we live under, for example, I had a friend that had 50 cows from his neighbor come into his property, 50 cows intruded into his property, yeah, and he woke up one morning, here's all these cows sitting out there in his yard, right? Okay, so he calls the sheriff. Sheriff comes out there, and this fellow's been violated. His neighbor the cows broke through the fence.
And he says, rather than me take this guy to jail or do something like that, he said, call the bureaucrats and they'll get the money.
Yeah, right, but I mean, that's what I'm getting to. So he calls the sheriff out. Now there is assessed a fine in this situation, which is interesting because now this is the interesting part of this.
But does it go to pay for your?
Guess who got the money for the fine? It wasn't the person's house that was violated by the cows. It went to the sheriff's department. So even when they're supposedly doing things that crossing the board into the area where people are being violated, the violator under this current Roman system that we live doesn't even get
only the state is strengthened and the state's
right.
controls.
It's revenue enhancement. That's what these fines. See that it all comes really. Bottom line is, folks, it all comes down to this. This is the
Federal Reserve
Yeah.
system.
Now basically, we've got a debt usury money system that's eating us alive, and they have to set up huge bureaucracies, huge regulatory agencies, and huge licenses and fines and permits and fees to perpetrate.
Well, you asked me
itself
what
to
the
keep-
solution is. I'm telling the people out there the solution is to stop giving all the power over to the government. They've already got all the power. Now we need to just try to keep some remnant of it. You know, people have this argument that, well, that's the way it's always been, or oh, well, it's our fault, or you know, you can't do anything about it. You can't beat City Hall. Well, that's because they've instilled that in us that we can't beat City Hall. You can beat City Hall. You just got to get together and start. If everybody out there that sees this show would just do their own little act of defiance, stand up, don't tattle on neighbors with water waster hotlines.
Quit begging bureaucrats to do favors for
Because
us.
let me tell you something. These bureaucrats only care about enhancing their power, and
That's right.
and they're taking our liberties.
That's right.
And they're obsessed with controlling our kids. They got the kids against the parents, the blacks against the whites, the women against the men against the women, the whites against the blacks, the Hispanics against the blacks, blah, blah, blah. It's a divide and conquer. But basically, It always cycles in. The bigger the problems get, to the more power they get. Where's the incentive? It's for more problems. It's for more bureaucracy.
Because let me answer something, folks. Anarchy, which isn't adequately defined in any real sense.
It's impossible in
but
groups.
The fact
it's impossible with our society.
The only way you're really going to the difference between what I would like, a very minimal government, which basically does protect the lives and property of the people, and that's it.
Peacekeepers,
right.
But now they're law enforcement.
Yeah, and peace officers have been replaced now with law enforcement. Revenue generation, which only makes us
fuels the system,
creates victimless crime,
fuels the predatory system with an ever-increasing hunger for control of your life, control of your resources.
I read something the other day.
And the education and the indoctrination of you and
your
family.
I read something the other day that as many as 47 people are sitting in the state prison system right now with basically what would be considered victimless crime. Even the story suggested that. In other words, nobody's been violated except this person has broke some law that's been created by the state.
Well, look, if the IRS really wants to, and the media will never report it, they can take your home, take you to federal prison, and you never broke one law.
Now, let me just mention, folks, I got a few announcements here. First off, last Sunday of every month,
Chariot Inn.
At Chariot Inn.
Coming up the next few months is going to be Joyce Riley
and
Waco Remembrance. Don't listen to the media. Come down and meet some of the Davidians yourself. That doesn't mean you agree with everything that happened out there, or you come find out the truth for yourself. It'll be very educational.
Last Sunday of every month.
And then Tex Mars is coming up in 3 months.
That's at the Chariot Inn. And also, February 22nd.
It's free to the public, too. It's open.
February 22nd is the Jeff Davis Show has sponsored, in part, been able to make the connections to get several surviving Branch Davidians.
Hello, folks. This is Mike Hanson here on Mike Hanson Archives on YouTube and here on my Facebook. And we're here at the 25th anniversary of the memorial service here in Waco, Texas. And we got Clive Doyle here. Can you tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on the 25th anniversary here?
It's
It's all right. Everybody knows you.
It's kind of hard. My daughter just died.
Now, that's what I heard. And we didn't put it out on the internet because we were asked not to. This is the first time people out here on my...
a lot of them don't. A lot of them don't know yet.
That was your first daughter died at Mount Carmel, and this was your another daughter.
This is my oldest daughter. It's my youngest that died in the fire. And Karen was coming down, had her plane booked. She was coming down for the memorial, and ended up dying in a head-on collision. A drunk driver. People up in Pennsylvania saying that it was deliberate, it wasn't an accident. Tried to run a cop off the road first. I guess the cop avoided it. Tried to run down another woman and she avoided it. Karen was third in line. So they say she died instantly, which is at least she didn't suffer too much. But seems like every year there's a few more to go.
Yeah, it's just not many left. Clive, I'm so sorry for all the stuff that's happened to y'all, and hopefully it will get better. But you, like you always say, it's going to be better.
It'll get worse before it gets better.
Well, but once we're gone here, maybe.
Well, you know, KRLD called me this morning. Well, what do you think the government's learned in 25 years? I said, nothing. Except don't have the press there filming everything.
How are you doing?
There's Desi. Okay, well, we're getting ready to start. Who do you got speaking this year?
Phil Arnold, James Tabor, I believe, Catherine Lessinger, Mary Winborn wants to say a little
Oh,
bit.
good. Oh, I can't wait to see her.
There's a lot of people.
All right, well, we're getting started here, folks. I hope y'all can make it here for the 25th anniversary here. And what's the address here? If they can still make it?
701.
701 Jefferson, Waco, Texas.
They're going to be at the
Hope to
Cherry
see you
Inn
here,
on
folks.
Sunday, February the 22nd of 1998. That's 98, not 97. Sunday, February 22nd of 1998. Also, there was a couple of other things I've actually... Okay, our live show is on Monday nights. This is our taped news series on Thursdays that you're watching. But our live show is Monday nights, 7 o'clock p.m. on Channel 10. And that's the bulk of our live show.
8:30. And then my
Alex's show is on Tuesday nights.
8:30 to 11.
From 8:30 to 11.
And it's usually live. I mean, sometimes they'll tune in and our shows aren't live.
Yeah, and you run a lot of tapes and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
So there's now our show here again is the this is going to be, we're scheduling this for our 4th edition here, so start telling your friends and family. Now tape these programs as well, folks. I know there's a lot of people that tape my live show. I've had at least a dozen people tell me that.
It's very vital because we don't know how long these we don't know how long these venues are going to be here, and it's vital that people all the time call me and want to buy something from me. I say that I don't do that. What you need to do is tape these programs for yourselves and get them out to your friends. Spread
it is the best and most comprehensive book on Bohemian Grove, and it's written by Mike Hanson, my old camera guy. Mike Hanson Archives.
All of this that we do here at the Jeff Davis Show is totally non-copyright.
You can change people's lives. You can really change people's lives out there if you just have the will to start educating yourself. That's the biggest solution, is education. Realize that the media is nothing but propaganda arms. 6 big corporations in U.S. media, they all have interlocking stock. They all have joint ventures. It's one big beast, guys. And organized religion is totally in their hip pocket. And it's just sick how the NEA, the National Education Association, here's the fact. The bigger the NEA gets, the more power, the more federal standardized testing we get, the more control our states are controlled by the feds. They take our money from the states. And then they give it back to us with strings attached about how to train and tell our kids about how wonderful the United Nations is, and play spaceship and bomb shelter where there's 6 kids around a table and only 2 can live, or and they decide who has to live. They think not problem solving, getting kids used to hearing about this. And I've talked about this live, and kids have called in and said, yeah, we do that in junior high.
And tell how we're dying of global.
How much time do we have?
Oh, and exactly. Give up your rights.
I want to get a close-up
Give
of
up
this,
your rights because of global warming. Give up your rights. Give up your rights. It's bull. The whole environmentalist movement has nothing to do with that. Yeah, he wants a close-up.
Yeah, I want to get a close-up of it. Now, folks, this is something that's quite interesting. It says political dominance.
We also got the footage coming up that the cows have been violated.
Okay, through 4 political dominance is through 4. It's actually been longer than that, but this is the 4 administrations they choose. You will see here, folks, that this is the. Maybe we can't get a very good close-up of this, but this is the latest, one of the latest letters
mechanisms
from the
of control.
Fund to Restore an Educated Electorate. And basically, we need to get the top of it so we can show the.
Get it all in at one time.
Well, okay. Basically, this is the CFR Trilateral Commission. Now, Alex, if you will, while I'm showing this, bring the camera up a little bit. I've got it down as far as I can here. Well, anyway, this is the latest. This is one of the latest charts here. There's the tricycle, which is a symbol for the Trilateral Commission.
Bring it up, man.
Tell us a little bit about these groups here, Alex.
Don't take it down.
Tell
Hold
us
on, Mike, you're getting louder and louder in here. Mike needs
go,
a hold. Come on,
go
out
ahead.
Well, this ain't Dan Rather. Tune over to Dan Rather.
That's right. Dan Rather will give you plenty of teleprompter with CFR messages for you.
Tell us about them groups.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Okay, you really want me to, though?
Yeah, go ahead and
Okay.
tell us about that.
All right, well, the Council on Foreign Relations, I believe, was started in the 20s?
1919.
Yeah. And really got well ordered. The Council on Foreign Relations, Sandy Berger gets up there on TV, our national security advisor, runs the National Security Agency, and tells us about the global regime of power. I mean, they're pretty much, because of shows like this and others across the country, they're coming right out and telling you what's happening, where they're going, how they're dismantling the country, and how it's going to help the kids. And, because international control, not you have any control. But remember, you're asking for it, they say. And basically that was started. And then in 1973, Brzezinski.
Brzezinski.
Yes, and his daughter's on, is it NBC or?
CBS Up to the Minute.
CBS Up to the Minute. Well, he and David Rockefeller, and then later they brought Jimmy Carter, and that loving nuclear physicist.
Okay. Let him go ahead and explain these groups.
Tell the story how they don't give the fines to me.
I did already. Okay.
Yeah.
But
I'll explain whenever you're ready. I will.
But basically, they're just elitist front group.
Well, yes. The Trilateral Commission is an absolute elitist front group. And these things exist. They're concrete. They're on C-SPAN.
They have.
The CFR.
And they're interconnected.
Yeah, the CFR. Well, it's like the Congress. One's the Senate. One's the House.
All right. Now, Alex, here's the footage of this person being violated on his property. Now, keep in mind when the fine was assessed.
And there's a lot of pretty plants growing over there. I've been over to this person's house.
When the fine. Now, this is cows coming over
cows
from a neighbor that broke through their fence one morning and ended up on another person's property.
I believe the cows did it like 3 times before Mike really got mad.
Now, what was interesting about it was when the county came out to assess the fine, because it was clearly stated that this fellow had been violated. Mike didn't get any of the assessment for the fine. It went for revenue generation.
Well, of course he did.
Now, see, that's all quite interesting, folks. That's the. In fact, I got another quick interesting story on this. When we was up in Ohio in June of this year, '97, my daughter. I had to call an ambulance for my daughter like at 3 o'clock in the morning, man, because I was, she was starting to panic and said she was hurt real bad. I thought she had her appendix had bursted, so I called the ambulance. Right, rushed her over to this hospital. And about 2 months later, after I gotten back, I got this loving bill for $350 for this ambulance service. Now, what I was always thought, Alex, and correct me,
we paid for that.
Yeah, I thought these were free. I thought these services, were maybe I'm just maybe I didn't understand it. So the point is, if they don't collect our fines, if they don't collect violations for us, if they don't pay for our ambulance services and all of this out of our property taxes and all these, then what is all this going for?
What your producer is not showing is the other side of that home has a lot of pretty plants and things that the cows ate.
Yeah, he was violated, but he has to go through another process now to try to collect the fine from the.
Yeah, they are in the flower beds.
So
it's a lovely home out there.
So you understand. So the point is, folks, the point I think the whole point of this story, of this show, and and kind of the gist of the live program we was on earlier today, is that we have to quit depending upon.
Well, these people are gangsters. They're absolute 100% total gangsters. The whole incentive is for more control, more corruption, more abuse. And then the whole thing is to is to make us weak, dumb us down, make us a bunch of cogs in a filthy machine. It's lack of vision. It's a wild beast. It's out of control. I think the interests that have created this actually are losing control because of the vicious, the thugs that they're producing and making, and the military people that they are putting in power, like John Shalikashvili, one of our Chairman George's staff, the son of a death camp operator who replaced Colin Powell, who was. CFR. I mean, what we're sitting here doing is that these leaders have to know that what they're creating is going to be extremely dangerous for them in the future. I mean, this thing creates a very unstable system. In the name of stability worldwide, these guys are ushering in absolute Babylon.
I do have a quick suggestion for anybody that seeks solutions, and that's very basic, folks. You don't run to thugs to help you or to provide so-called services. Basically what you're dealing with, folks, in all of these situations is wolves in sheep's clothing. The Bible's warned us about this. Christ said that...
Oh, wait, you just said the Bible. All those loving, intelligent atheists will never listen to a word you say. They won't check out Executive Order 12,986 when Bill Clinton handed over our parks. I mean, I want to ask people out there, I want to ask them something. How in the hell can you question anything we say when you haven't checked it out?
That's right.
And I've brought it in here. It's Executive Order 12,986 100 times.
Because they're programmed not to check it out.
I mean, what the hell's going on when the UN gains control a bunch of our parks and monuments?
Okay, folks.
And there were protests. You didn't hear about it in the media. They put up those baby blue signs up in front of the parks. People raised hell at Mammoth Cave, Yellowstone, Yosemite, which they've now shut down to cars, or they're getting ready to, and then people's the plan. And then later they'll just sell it off. It's all about control. What can they get you to accept? And that's why I say long live the Constitution and death to the New World Order. And what does that mean, death to the New World Order? It means death to corruption, death to apathy, and life to rebirth and standing up. Because we will never
Put that
get...
slate back,
Yes,
that thing back.
we will... Okay, sure. We will never get rid of corruption. We will never get rid of corruption. But if you don't stand up to it, it's going to overrun you. It's going to keep overrunning you. So it's time to stand up and start thinking for yourselves and realize that you're being conned and realize that they're handing you a whole bucket of horse crap.
And for people inside the mechanism.
And they don't care about the kids.
For people inside.
I mean, say what you said earlier, Jeff. It's not what we can do for the kids. It's not what we're going to do for the kids. It's what the government's going to do for the kids with national health care and for kids.
You can watch.
Listen, they want the next generation. They've already got them in the public schools. They're dumbing them down. They're teaching them nothing but weakness.
We're starting Head Start earlier now, too.
Yeah,
loving Head Start. But basically, folks, the bottom line is this. If you want a solution, look, you can't depend on thugs for your retirement. You can't depend on thugs for your so-called security. Thugs will absorb these mechanisms.
I think it's time for this again.
Take what you have and use it against you. That's what's happening now.
Let's get one more shot of this.
Let me just say this one thing.
I want to leave this up for quite a while. This illustrates it all.
Clinton is a beautiful wolf in sheep's clothing. I mean, this guy, everything he says is for the country or the kids. I mean, he's pretty slick, and if you're not attuned to these characters, you could fall prey to this. Now, let's put this up here.
I want to get the first one and then the bottom one. The bottom one's
if you
even
put
better.
this, what is the bottom?
Yeah, first
Okay.
let's first do the top one and then let's do the bottom one.
These are little cartoons we're using here to the show here tonight, just to give you a little bit.
And think about it for a second. I mean, how could the Aztecs accept sacrificing tens of thousands of their children? Everybody was doing it. How could the Romans get away with it? People accepted it. It was the culture they were in. Well, this didn't go on 50 years ago in America, my friends. There's always been abuses in this country, like with any other country. But yeah, that's perfect. I mean, there you got it. There's Germany up there in the top corner. Then there's Russia. You're free as long as I say you're free. And
it's an illusion of freedom.
It's a total illusion.
It's just like you say you own your home, folks. You actually don't. You're not owning your home, because if you don't, even if you get the banknote paid off, if you don't pay your property taxes, the property's going to come take your home. So the fact is, we don't really own anything. We don't really have the freedom that they say that we do. There are a few left. Fortunately, we still come on these shows and have talk radio and television shows and talk about some of these things. Although I believe attempts could be made at that type of this type of information here somewhere down the road to stamp it out.
Yeah, and it's funny how they put up these drug checkpoints when it's been documented the CIA since Vietnam has been bringing in heroin and coke.
That's right, documented.
Now here's a clip I wanted. Let's get this. This says the old highwaymen.
Do it better. You can talk about it, but let me.
It's just incredible.
Can we get a close up of the second one here?
And let's leave that up.
The second one here, if we could.
You'll come in and we'll go.
But basically, folks, this is what we're talking about. Don't quit believing thugs.
Yeah, people used to stop people on the wagon trains and say, with masks on, and say, pay a poll tax. And now some of your law enforcement, multi-jurisdictional task forces under federal control are busted in houses.
Oh, they just see things.
Back it up just a little bit because we can't see.
Yeah, back it up just a hair.
And what they're doing is they are busting in people's houses with ski masks.
That's not. You got to get the top of it too.
You can just back it up on the back there on the.
Maybe not.
Well, Mike, if you just back up on the camera, there we go. Yeah, freeze it there. That's good.
The Peter Jennings crew.
Okay, that's good.
The Peter Jennings crew didn't show up.
Freeze it right there.
Hey,
okay.
We're doing the best job we can.
If you don't like it, tune over to him. He's on.
Yeah, but listen again. Peter Jennings does have He does have $100 million set. He does have a teleprompter with CFR brainwashing material coming off on it 24 hours a day, and he has no reason to lie to you. He's a very truthful person that never manipulates the truth and never divides anybody. So just trust in him. Don't So there you have it. The old highwayman. Yeah, pay the toll. And down there below, yeah, Al Gore's test. Yeah, you got this, you got that. Basically, it's the same system. They're not interested in criminals anymore, punishing criminals. They're interested in fleecing good, hard-working people that are just producers. Parasites have taken over. Government parasites.
Let me just read a couple of quick quotes here, folks.
Dr. Benjamin Rush.
Dr. Benjamin Rush, essay 1786. Education is favorable to liberty. Freedom can exist only in the society of knowledge. Without learning, men are incapable of knowing their rights, and where learning is confined to a few people, liberty can be neither equal nor universal.
Well, you know what they do, showing us all these checkpoints and all these stops endlessly in the news? They're desensitizing us to the police state.
Now
They're
here's
getting us used to
Benjamin
it.
Franklin, 1759. They that can give up essential liberty, Benjamin Franklin. They that can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety.
And Thomas Jefferson said it better. He said they deserve, nor will they get it. They will invite the wolves.
And listen, here's another Thomas Jefferson.
If you
thing.
make yourselves blind, trusting, little giggling
Listen to
sheep.
this is good. Here's Thomas. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Where the press is free and every man able to read, all liberty and property is safe. Listen to what
Now,
Thomas.
but remember,
if
free
a nation,
press,
in other words,
free
he's
press
saying,
means you're really free to say what you want. And now they've taken over the press by control and manipulation. You do not have a free press in this country. Little access television stations are about the only thing, shortwave radio and some talk radio.
Internet.
And that's why it's being called hate radio,
Internet.
because you can get something longer than a soundbite on there.
Let me just
They hate it. All they want is sound bites, my friends. Brainwashing, conditioning, classical conditioning.
Let me just restate this. Thomas Jefferson, 1816. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be.
That's it.
I'd say that pretty well sums it up.
Yeah, that sums it up, Jeff. But again, people can get the real information if they would just dig for it. Actually get the bills. Again, H.R. 902, Ron Paul's trying to stop Clinton's handover to the UN, but you never heard about it on the media, did you? But you'll hear about some bill for a new program.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of, it's going to be real interesting to see.
But guys, remember, what we're talking about not important. The Cowboys are what's important. The Green Bay Packers, that's important. That's important to the future of your children is the Cowboys. So forget what we're talking about. And, you know, we shouldn't get excited and all serious about liberty and freedom. Woo! How about the Coach Mack?
That's right.
How them Longhorns can do this year?
Yeah, that's where it's at, folks. Now, I'm not trying to make it because all of these people are vulnerable to this. I will say this.
Talk about the mechanism and how a lot of police are getting educated to this and how that's the real weakness.
That is the Achilles heel. And I was going to mention that earlier.
If they're enforcers,
folks, if you're watching this and you happen to be APD or Leander PD, or if you're listening and they're hearing this, I want you to know if what we're saying is true.
Even 10%.
And I think that means you're in the same situation we are. I mean, so this is why it's very important to spread this information and let the people decide. Take some time to investigate this stuff. Believe you me, folks, I would like to believe that this wasn't happening.
Me too.
I would like to just go on and press on doing what I'm doing.
Jeff, something that the police, a lot of police come to me and tell me about this, how they're training with the military.
I've had...
how they're training with the military, how they don't like it, but please don't say their name on the air, SWAT team people, you name it. And I can't say that enough. They're waking up. People like Jack McClam, Police Against the New World Order, they're educating and just droves of police. They see it happening. They go out and train with the military, and it's sniper training. It's training, confiscating goods, compensating.
How much time, Mike?
I mean, you want to go ahead and talk to Mike?
No, it's right. How much time?
Thanks.
About 3 minutes.
I'm just getting how much.
So here it is right here. Jack McClam's, show that to me. Operation Vampire Killer.
Right there it is, folks.
And so if their enforcers start not being enforcers and start waking up to what's happening, that really weakens their mechanism.
Now, this guy that wrote this book, folks, he is the most highly decorated police commander, police chief.
Let me read this. American Police, American Police Military Action Plan for Stopping World Government Rule. And that's what we're headed into. Hell, every time you turn on CNN or ABC, all you hear about is how wonderful global freedom's coming. You won't have any freedom. They will take away your individual rights for collective. If the individual doesn't have rights, the smallest unit of the society, then I guarantee you that you don't have any rights.
You had a fellow on your show you've had a fellow on your show, former APD, that stepped out of the mechanism.
Keith Campbell.
There's
some loving. Again, now they're wearing ski masks. Like, I mean, you know, like you said, when you were in the Air Force, Jeff, you were trained to shoot people that look like that.
Yeah, I was actually told and trained to shoot people wearing ski masks. With that, folks, I think we're about winding down this
Hello, folks.
segment.
This is Mike Hanson here, and we appreciate you watching my new YouTube channel, Hanson Archives. Be sure to subscribe there, hit the subscribe button. And I have a new YouTube channel that we're going to put all the Waco stuff on, Waco Archives. And don't forget our other channel, Mike Hanson Archives. And if you'd like to help out getting all these thousands of tapes uploaded to YouTube, I am offering a special. If you send $25 into this address, the lady is going to put up on the screen, we'll send you a signed copy of my book, Bohemian Grove, Cult of Conspiracy. And it was forwarded by Tex Mars. It just recently passed away. So our address there is 901 St. Joseph Street in Gonzales, Texas. So, and if you want to call us for any reason, our number is 830-672-3089. Be sure to keep subscribing, and if you want to look us up on Facebook, it's Mike Hanson, Hanson, from Gonzales, Texas. Alrighty, stay tuned right here on these channels for all these classics. Alex Jones, Jeff Davis, and a bunch of other great Patriots. So we'll see you next time. Keep supporting us. We need the support. It's costing a lot of money. God bless you.
Come on, anybody want to come up here? All right, that's it. All right, who wants to lead? Let Gene go. Go ahead. Yes, sir. All right. God bless the Republic. Death